Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Nedling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Nedling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I am very excited to talk to David Buck, and you will be as well when you find out about him. David is the author of The Time Optimized Life, and he has 35 plus years of organizational and time management experience. That led him to start, and I'm going to probably pronounce this wrong, Kairos? Is that
Kairos, close. Kairos, yes.
Kairos Management Solution and the Infinity Lifestyle Design Program. David empowers business professionals to overcome the struggles of a lack of flexibility in life. He helps his clients craft a strategy to optimize their time that defines a lifestyle focused on meaning, purpose, and joy. David resides in Ponte Vedra. Vedra? Yeah. Yep. Florida. I always say Ponte Vedra. Is that wrong?
Ponte Vedra, yes.
Yes,
it can
Ponte
go
Vedra.
Either way.
Yes. Yep. With his wife, Reverend Dr. Susan Rose. So we will find out more about David in a moment, but we're going to have our topic be reframing the word retirement. And those of you that watch me, you know, I don't understand retirement like the normal people do. So we're going to find out what David has to say about that. So please join me in welcoming my guest, David Buck. David,
Vicki,
so happy to have you here.
It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. And I think your story, your personal story of retirement itself can be an inspiration for many people, because reframing retirement needs to be looked at today. It's stereotypical. It's portrayed in the media as a particular way. That's not necessarily what reality is like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think part of mine, and definitely we'll get into the questions, but part of mine was that I've always had this mindset that if I can do, I should. And I think it comes from, I had a large family and my dad worked and my mom was not allowed to work. She was just to stay home until finally we were starting to get to almost, we were in high school getting to college age. And the reality was that we couldn't really afford to go to college. And also, you know, with 7 kids, it was just going to be tough. So when I got married, I got a job. I did 2 jobs at one point, and I married a teacher. And so I thought, I just am going to always contribute. And then whenever I retired at 62, 61, I thought, you know, I just don't really like just sitting around. I think there's more that I can give. And so as I told you earlier, I do now what I love as opposed to what I have to do.
And that is really the statement everyone needs to stick with them through this podcast and beyond, is what do you love to do? And if you find what you love to do, and retirement means it's heavy in work because what you do is what you love in that work, that's okay too. If love is I get to get out of work and pursue all these personal things, that's okay too. I think the dynamic in there is to understand that if you do have a spouse or a partner, they need to be part of your equation, because you don't want to go in isolation that says, I'm doing exactly what I want in retirement, when there was misconstrued or unanswered things that your spouse or partner had that they wanted to pursue with you. And so if you can weave that into the mix,
Mm,
then I think it becomes a customized lifestyle strategy that fits what you love to do.
yeah. All right, so we're going to get into this now. We always start with 2 easy questions. We already did give away the first question about where do you call home, but have you lived in Florida all your life?
For most of my life, I was born up in the suburbs of Chicago and stayed there till I was 15. And then my family moved as a kid. We moved to Florida and stayed there. And now I've since left twice when I had to pursue other jobs, but have now been back for 4 years now. And as long as nothing changes, this will be home for the rest of my life.
Awesome. So the next is, we just gave a brief bio about you and your business and where you what you have today, but I always like for you to share a little bit of your story and the journey that you took, expected or unexpected, that brought you to do what you do today.
Well, and thank you for that. As I mentioned, 35 plus years, you said in my bio, I was in business development. That's a fancy word for sales. And I learned early on, and very heavy on the sarcasm here, that my amazing good looks and charisma was not going to get me very, very far in sales. And I found when I was more prepared than my competition, that usually meant a gauge of my success. And then part of that preparation was me managing my time, but I also found when I managed, help my clients manage their time, that then that trust built because I was out for their best interests. And so I found over the course of my career that was able to define my success. And about, I guess about 5 years ago, I started to have friends, friends of friends, family members, stuff. Well, Dave, can you help me with my time? And that led me to build an outline of a program or a system. And so I started my business as a side hustle. And then about 2 years ago, dove full in to what I call productivity and lifestyle enhancements. And I do that 2 major ways. The first one is I work with people, individuals, companies, and businesses on what I call in career. So what can you do to maximize your productivity while you're in career? But then also I added about a year and a half ago, the element through my own personal journey of trying to figure out, what do I want to do? I'm 60. What am I going to do when I decide to retire? That journey took me on to develop a system there where I work with people post-career to craft that lifestyle strategy, whatever that is, of how you best effectively use your time when you choose to, quote, retire.
Yeah. And I think that it's really good to have a system because, as you and I know from today, things happen and your day, no matter how perfectly planned, down on paper even, it sometimes goes awry. And how do you get it back in line, or at least somewhat in line, so that you don't feel as though you've wasted that day?
That's a great question. I am a big proponent of planning ahead. So for me, regardless of, whether I have a client that's in a career or a client that's not, planning your days out, and I plan out 2 weeks ahead. So it's a rolling 2 weeks, knowing though it's going to change. You can be as detailed and think it's going to go as exactly as planned. But if you don't put some guardrails out there first, you have a tendency to be very reactive then instead of being proactive. So someone wants you to spend your very valuable time to help them. If you haven't planned it forward, you can't negotiate from a place of, quote, strength. So I say people plan your days out, but also plan in flexibility so that when something goes longer than expected or someone needs you and you need to give your time, you haven't then totally upset the apple cart by trying to figure out, what am I going to do with all these other things? You have a greater chance of weaving that in, helping that situation out, but still accomplishing the important things that you needed to do in that day.
Very true. Very true. I actually for years and years, I did both my phone and a written calendar. And during COVID, I kind of got away from that because I was online so much that I just was relying on, I'm sitting here on my desk anyway, you know, and
Mhm.
seeing my calendar on one computer. And so, but now that we're back to being in person and getting out and about, I find that I had to get back to my Sunday writing it down in my calendar that matches my phone calendar so that I know what's going on. And it just is a trick that I have for my own needs. So, what are some of the most common time management challenges that people have for post career or in retirement?
Ironically, this might sound counterintuitive, but procrastination
Yes, I
is one of
was
those.
absolutely.
So look at it this way. If you're working now, let's say you're thinking I'm going to retire in a year or two, and you're working 48 hours a week and you sleep 7 hours a night, that's 40% of your awake time is now structured in some form or fashion tied to your career. So then I'm going to step into the old traditional retirement of where I'm stopping working. I'm not going to work anymore. Well, you got to find not only what are you going to do in the awake time that you were doing outside of work, but now you got 40% of your awake time to figure out what you're going to want to do. And what happens is when people then give up the structure that maybe they had in the planning element of their
Mhm.
career, it gets very easy to say, I'll worry about that tomorrow. I'll
Mhm.
push that off. And so they begin to intentionally delay on things that they know that are going to harm them by delaying because they have this sense in their head, have all this extra time. I'll
Mhm.
just figure it out later. And so that's where I try to tell people don't lose the discipline of structure that you had in the career, translate it into a full lifestyle strategy where you're implementing those same disciplines, but it's all on the personal things you get to do now versus maybe tied to a professional or occupation.
That's great advice. And also for those that are remote workers, I think it really also falls in line with that because when you're a remote worker, you don't have those interruptions through the day or the structured lunch hour and all those things. And so you tend to either work all day and then
Mhm.
get burned out, or the day goes by and it's already 5 o'clock and you realize, oh crap, I didn't get anything done that I was going to or needed to do. So I agree. That that tip is a wonderful one for folks because procrastination is always behind the door somewhere.
It is. It is. And normally it's defined because we haven't put enough structure around the goal or the thing that we want
Hmm.
to do. So an example I use a lot is the room I'm sitting in right now is off white. If I declared one day I'm going to paint my room and didn't do anything on top of that, that would be so easy for me to continue to push off. But if I said, okay, in order to paint my room, I need to pick out the right color, the right finish. Got to get the materials. Where am I going to buy the paint from? All that stuff. When I start to lay it out, then it's easy for me to make small progress on
Hmm.
that to my ultimate goal. But if I just start with a declarative statement of I need to do X, chances are we'll procrastinate because we haven't defined what it is to accomplish X.
Yeah, so true. And also you have the people that do write a plan down, but they don't follow the plan. I'll just move this to tomorrow. I'll just move this to tomorrow or next week or next month. So you have that mindset as well.
Very much so. And I like the fact that you mentioned, and I encourage people to figure out what's right for you, whether you use a paper planner or it's all electronic. The idea is that tool you're using something to its full advantage? And I have gone back and forth between a planner and electronic calendar. I've now since gone all electronic. But I think one of the things that I like about a paper planner or calendar is it forces you to sit down and write it. And by the simple
Hmm.
fact of writing it, that's helps you remember
Absolutely.
and help prioritize. So
Yeah.
pick what's right for you and work on it, or find what's right.
Yeah. So what is the biggest issue the average person has for managing their time, and what can they do to overcome it? Is it procrastination, or is there something else out there?
So procrastination is a close second to distractions. So
Oh.
those two run neck and neck.
Mm-hmm.
And I define distractions as intentionally moving your focus away from something important to something less important.
Mm-hmm.
And our biggest culprit and the biggest tool out there that distracts us is our smartphone. It is an amazing productivity tool, something that has allowed us to do more things than we probably ever have been able to do. But at the same time, it is totally designed to take your attention off of what you're doing and to put your attention on it. And that's, if I tell people, if you're challenged with distractions, learn to put some discipline around when you choose to look at your phone.
Yeah. Very, very true. I actually turned off my ringer. I have it on silent most of the time because and also I don't have my watch on because that vibration of the two of them was always distracting and taking me off of my train of thought. I figured if it was bad enough, somebody would get in touch with me somehow, some way, but I wasn't going to have that interrupt me.
I would
What?
say to everyone who just heard that, stop if you have to rewind the 15 seconds and play it again. Most cases, what is distracting you is not important. It can wait. That text can wait. That phone call can wait. That was just really good advice there that will help you overcome if you get distracted a lot.
Right. So what is your perspective about multitasking? And I will tell you that in my 66 years now, my viewpoint has changed. When I was younger, I used to like wear the badge of the multitasker. I used to think of myself as those that are older, MASH and radar, and I could anticipate what you were doing and being ahead of the things. But I have since learned that if I'm doing 5 things at once, I'm not doing anything to my best ability. So I'd love to hear what your perspective is.
So I agree with you. I am not a fan of multitasking. Our brains are this amazing organ that we have that does crazy things for us. It is designed not to do more than one thing at a time. And I think everyone should embrace that. That's not just me saying it. That's a lot smarter people like the CDC, Mayo Clinic, World Health Organization, all the major places that focus on brain and brain health will tell you our brains are designed to do one thing at a time. Now, I will say that a musician, in my mind, is about as close to multitasking as you can, particularly one who, let's say, plays an instrument and sings at the same time. However, what's born out of that is a series of hours and hours of repetition and practice, so that the brain is able to do that, basically almost shut it off because it's done by memory. And think of the same thing when we drive. I daydream when I drive. I listen to the radio when I drive. That's not multitasking because I've done hours and hours of that driving that I already know my brain has trained my body to function automatically. And so I tell people, if you think you're really good at multitasking, try this if you're in a work environment. Practice on trying to do email while you're watching TV and tell me how far you get. If you think you're good there, then bring your laptop into work. The next time you sit in front of your boss, pull out your laptop. And when your boss says, "What are you doing?" Say, "I'm multitasking. I'm listening to you and I'm doing email at the same time." I don't think that's going to go very well. So really just focus on completing the one task that's in front of you before you decide to switch to the next. I think in the long run, you're actually going to find you get more done.
Oh, so true. So true. So, what are the biggest lifestyle changes that people will go through when they first decide to retire? I have numerous stories of people that I've met in my life about this, so love to hear some of yours.
The biggest thing I see and the thing that I teach first with clients is don't tell me what you do for a living, tell me your purpose in life.
Yeah.
And because I live in a 55 plus community, and a few weeks ago, my wife and I, neighbor was having a party in their driveway, and we went over and we talked. My wife and I both still work. And the interesting thing is, no one asked us what we did for a living. They didn't care. They didn't even know if we did anything for a living because that's what their lives are different in that respect. And so I ask everybody to say, regardless of where you're at in your stage in life, don't answer the question what you do for a living, define what your purpose in life is. And then that becomes the lens by which you can choose to take other actions in life. It becomes a gut check to say, I'm about ready to do something important. Does that define and fit into my purpose in life? And your purpose in life could be heavily rated to your career. That's okay. But don't make that your defining purpose because at some point, Father Time is going to catch up with all of us. And we're going to have to make a choice about a change in what we do, whether physically or cognitively. We may not be able to do exactly what we're doing now.
Such good advice. All right, so what are some steps that we should take to understand how to time optimize our life when it comes to being in our career? And, we are driven by others often in that regard.
So my definition of time optimization, and prefer that to use that versus time management. And the reason why is time management to me is very reactive. That happens to be the case where someone comes to us with an urgent need. We stop what we're doing, like we talked earlier. We handle that, and then all the other important things are still there. We may have done a really good job managing our time in that instance, but then what do we do about the stuff we've planned before? So optimization to me flips the script and it says, what are you going to do to be proactive? And I teach it through three principles. That's preparation, execution, and control. First is you prepare, like we talked about, planning your days ahead of time, but you prepare what you're going to do in that allocated time and space. Then once you're done preparing, you switch into execution mode and you challenge yourself. Am I executing this based upon how I prepared? You may have to say, I need to stop what I'm doing and do some more preparation because the outcome's not going to be good. Let's say you're executing well. Then you come back and you finally say you control yourself by saying, am I going to control myself to the outcome that I've desired? And if it's kind of like, I don't think I can get there, then you have to say, do I have to go prepare more? Do I have to change how I execute? So the three work together in tandem to be able to provide you with a proactive way to use your time.
That as you were talking about that, those that watch the show know I retired as a project manager. And so I always tell people that life is a project. If everybody would just run their life like a project, it would be less stressful for everyone because it does involve all of those things that you just were describing it and the flexibility to know that, okay, I need to pivot, I need to act differently, I need to change and be okay with that as opposed to stressing out when things don't go exactly as you expected them to go and you think the world's going to end. And I always tell people that there we have an internal GPS and it allows us to go a different way than we had already decided we were going to go, but we still get to the end destination. If it doesn't kill us or put us in jail, then give it a try, give it a go.
And if it takes a little bit longer than you anticipated, you still met that important goal and you should celebrate that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Celebrating the small things too. And as all those retirees out there, every day you should be grateful for your day. and you should be celebrating the small things. I think too, whenever a lot of the stories that I could tell you about retirees, one of the things that made their retirement not fulfilling and joyful was that they were no longer the big boss or the having people report to them, and they didn't have a purpose. They didn't look for a purpose. They thought their purpose was gone now that they retired. And it's so not true. I'm just here to tell you all out there, it is so not true.
And one of the things to consider about a career, which people don't anticipate, is when you step into a retirement life, a traditional one, where you're totally stepping away from any type of sense of work, your social network drops by at least 50%, because so much of your day-to-day interactions, again, 40% of your wake time interactions are with people that could be very, very close relationships. But if you don't nurture or work to keep those relationships as you head into your retirement life, they are not going to probably do the same on their end. So you'll find those relationships go away pretty quickly. So I really challenge people to say, if you have personal and professional relationships that are really important to you, proactively invest time in them, even if you don't think the other person's giving back the way they should, because you're going to want those there as you get older, because they will be nurturing for you and they'll provide a lot of value and purpose.
Wow. So, what makes your book, The Time Optimized Life, different, and how will it help people improve their use of their time?
So my book is designed not to be follow these 10 principles and your life is going to be magically changed. That's just not how I do it, because that wasn't my journey. I didn't follow someone else's principles. There's wonderful time management books out there that get into the tactics, but I found I was piecemeal from each one of those. So I was intentional here to start with the foundation that says we're all unique individuals. So therefore, we're going to all have our unique approach to ultimately what works best for us. Again, use the example. Some people work well with a paper calendar, others do not. So the idea is I give the guardrails around what you can do to identify what are my biggest opportunities, and then what are ways I can address my own behavior to change those. So I consider it a guide, but also what I did, because I'm an analytics and systems person, I actually also invited others that I know in my own personal life who do things really well in their time and life. And so they're featured in various chapters of the book where they give their own practical advice. So you get what I tell you, but you get what somebody else who tells you. Sometimes they don't mesh, but that's okay, because again, it's about that unique journey.
So very true. Well, time has flown by. I can't believe this, but as just a couple rapid fire things. So what's the difference between time management and time optimization? We talked about already, but what's the most common challenge that they have whenever they're in their careers, especially those that are trying to break that glass ceiling or move up in their career? So now you have family, you have maybe go and get a master's, you have your job responsibilities and hanging with the big boys kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a great question. What we tend to do, particularly people in careers, we silo our use of time and our planning of time to our personal and professional. Don't merge it together. You have one life that you may live in two different realms during the course of the day, but combine it together. So if you've got 3 calendars, try to get to one or share amongst it. The idea is you want to plan your entire life, not just your personal life or not just your professional. So blend the two together and own that. And I think that will help people get a better work life, what I call work life flexibility.
And I think that's really important because especially, I try to talk with female entrepreneurs and in corporate. And I think that part of being a great leader, and this aligns with my leadership track, is that you need to be able to build relationships. And so if you incorporate into one calendar your life, both sides of it, then whenever you have discussions with your people, you're showing them, oh, well, I can only meet you here because I have a soccer game down here, or, I have to go take my daughter to the doctor today for her annual physical or something. So you're showing these people that are looking up to you as a leader, but that you're human too, that you are a person, and it's okay for them to share that and be able to be open up. I think that's when you become the most impactful and are able to lead by example.
And a great advice. And you can lead by example. And then other people begin to ask you, how come you're so good with your time? What's your secret? And it's just simply, you're treating we all consume time at the same rate. A second is the same to you, to me, to the listener. How we use time is vastly different. So get away from the consumption view of time. Look at how you're going to use your time, and that helps you prioritize. And again, it's the same in professional or personal life.
Well, if you guys have more questions or love what you heard and want to know more about the book, The Time Optimized Life, as well as just want to get in contact with David, I'm going to share my screen as I always do. If you are just listening, you should run and grab a paper and pencil, but everything will be on my YouTube channel. So please do subscribe, as well as my findyourleadershipconfidence.com. So again, the website is the infinitylifestyledesign.com. Facebook is Dave Time Buck. LinkedIn is David's Buck, and that's David with the S at the end, Buck. Infinity_Buck is Twitter. Instagram is Infinity Lifestyle Dave. And YouTube is at Infinity Lifestyle Design. You can see the book. It's pictured there. Dave will talk to you now about his call to action of what resources he has on his website that might interest you, as well as where he spends the most time on his social media. So I'll turn it over to David right now.
Vicki, thank you again. I like you. This time flew by for me, so I've been having a great time. So thank you. I would just say my social media platform of choice is predominantly LinkedIn. So if you're on LinkedIn, obviously, please send me a connection request. Mention Vicki in that, so I know where the connection request is coming from. And you can just check out my profile there. For general views, just head over to infinitylifestyledesign.com. There you can find ways to take the assessment at the bottom where it says time management analysis. It's the basis for how I wrote the book. So if you'd like to take the assessment yourself and get a free copy of that back, so you can identify where are my biggest time opportunities, you can do that as well. And then also on the page, if you click into the book page, you can download chapter 1. So if you're kind of like, I need to know more about this time optimized thing a little bit, you'll be able to download chapter 1 for free and get a flavor of the book that way as well.
Fantastic. So David, thank you so much for being such a great guest. I enjoyed our conversation today. You shared a lot of wonderful tips, not only for those that are thinking about retiring, but also those that are working and are trying to manage their time or optimize their time a little bit better. So thanks for being such a great guest.
Awesome, Vicki. Thank you again. An honor to be here.
And as I always remind everyone, that life is a journey, and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Nettling, signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Nettling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.